Well, we're joined now by Vaughan, who runs the adoption agency Family Futures, and by campaigner Angela Fraser-Wicks, who had 2 children adopted, has recently met her eldest son.
Morning.
Very good morning to both. Angela, I think in a way that the simplest way to talk to you is about a date, a moment in time. Do you want to tell us the very significant date that is related to this story?
Yeah, I think that would be the 2nd of July 2004, and that's the date that I said goodbye to my 2 eldest children.
OK. Do you want to explain that moment in time? How old were they? What were the circumstances?
Yes, my eldest son was 5.5, my youngest son was only 14 months old, and they'd been removed predominantly because I was a victim of domestic abuse and I hadn't been able to prove to the local authority that I could safeguard the children, and they were being permanently removed and adopted.
OK, and such an emotive phrase, you say, you said goodbye to. That's what this story is all about. When are you allowed, are they allowed contact again? How did it work for you after that point in time, from that date?
Well, the very last sentence I said to my son before we drove away was, "I love you and Mummy will write really soon," because we'd been promised what's known as letterbox, which is a yearly letter exchange that allows you to stay in contact with your child and to keep them updated as to how you're doing and find out how they are. And unfortunately for me, it was a few months later when I discovered that, as there were no potential adopters at that point, there could be no agreement for letterbox, and therefore I couldn't write, so I couldn't keep the promise that I'd made to my son to be able to stay in contact with him, and that led me to try and find help to be able to secure letterbox and get support in order to be able to do that, which I was very fortunate I did manage to be able to do, and received beautiful handwritten letters from my son with gorgeous photographs, and saw they were happy and healthy, but most importantly they were safe. And that allowed me to slowly take tentative steps to a life without them, and motivated me to have something to write in those letters to show them that, you know, Mum was doing OK and they didn't have to worry.
So it was once they were adopted that the letterbox scheme could carry on. And you had a daughter.
Yes.
Some years later. And then if we kind of fast forward, so you've got a good relationship with both your sons?
No, just my eldest son. We had letterbox. It broke down when he was in his teens, because by that point, unfortunately, we weren't really very supported to make this work. And so I gave him permission to let go. You know, if he wasn't in a position to have that relationship, then that had to be his decision, and just supported my daughter with that. And we didn't hear anything for many years. And then another date, 16th of December 2020, an email out of the blue, and he was back. He wanted to make contact and pick up the relationship.
And where did it pick up to what point?
It was, we're still in contact now, and he lives in Australia, so we spent the best part of 4 years communicating virtually on screen. And then last month he came to the UK with his new wife, and we were finally able to be together again, and he got to meet his sister, and she, at the age of 13, finally got to meet one of her brothers.
Was his face and little personality just the same? Did you see those bits?
Exactly. The moment we reconnected on a video call was mind-blowing, because it was that despite 20 years apart, he was the same boy, he was the same person, and his mannerisms were the same, and to be able to see that mirrored in my daughter as well, so that you can see that connection has just been phenomenal.
Thank you for sharing your story, and I'm mindful that we've rushed you through what is an extraordinary length of time and a roller coaster of emotions, so thank you so much. I mean, I suppose in a way, Jay, that it really does bring it home, doesn't it? Yeah. That why it's so important that as best you can, and when it's possible, that some form of connection should be done sooner and, I don't know, just better, really.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've been talking earlier on, and we're very much in agreement that contact with birth relatives is so, so important, but it needs supporting. And at the moment, the world's changed. You can contact and you can find anybody online. So to have a system which is actually properly supported, because what contact a child needs at 5 will be very different by 15. And for lots of the children that I see and have seen over the years, and I still do direct work with children and families, they have been very traumatised by what's happened. So if you put together a traumatised child, adopted parents who've been trying to help that child manage, with often a very traumatised birth parent, birth relative who's struggling, that's a lot of distressed people. And there's really important conversations to have. So that needs supporting. And that's, I suppose, been my concern about this. Not that there shouldn't be contact with birth relatives, but if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. We need to make sure that it's safe, that it's bespoke for each child. So every child's going to have a different need. And that we have the funding to support it properly.
This was going to be my next question, because this is resource intense and resource heavy. No one's saying this is not a good idea, of course, if all parties are in agreement and willing to move forward, but they need that support. Where you know, we know that funds are tight. Absolutely,
and the Adoption Support and Special Guardianship Fund has been fantastic, but it isn't. It's not allowed to be used for facilitating contact, supporting contact. I mean, that may change, but it's the funding that's available is not going to do this. We know already that birth relatives aren't supported well, and that's something Andrew and I have been talking about. So how are we going to make it even more complicated, bring in something which the Public Law Review is saying, and then not have it funded, not have a structure? There's not even a real concept as to how do you assess what should happen for each child. There's no assessment when children are move into the care system. There's no multidisciplinary assessment to work out what they need. So this is another layer.
Yeah, I suppose, forgive me if I get the tone around this wrong, but how would you know whether a 5-year-old, for example, should or would want to have connection with the birth parent? And, where do the rights lie? As the birth parent may well want to connect to the child who has been adopted, but who is the person who is best placed to judge whether that is the right thing and when is the right time?
Well, I think it comes back to what we were just saying about that support, and it's about building relationships. You know, the people supporting the adoptive family and that child should have a relationship with them, should know that child. In the beginning, when I had Letterbox, I had a fantastic Letterbox coordinator who got to know me, who got to know my son, who got to know their parents, and was then able to actually act as an intermediary between the three of us to work out what was best for the child. And I think there's a bit of a misconception, I think, around why birth parents want that contact, and that maybe it's that we're not ready to let go or we're trying to hold on. But that actually it's important for the child to know that we're okay, that we give permission for them to be happy and to settle, and so that they can deal with a lot of those complex emotions that they must be feeling.
Yeah, I know you work with people, and I know you do as well, obviously, advising maybe the wrong word, but just getting the thought process going about what is the right process to go through.
Absolutely. I'm Chair of Trustees at an organisation called Family Rights Group, and we campaign for children to be safely raised within their family wherever possible. But when not, that actually we strengthen the relationships and we maintain them. And 50% of our board are people with lived experience of the child welfare system. We have panels of parents, adopters, kinship carers who inform our work, so that actually we can sit there and get a really well-rounded view of everybody's experiences, everybody's opinions, and make sure that the system that's put in place to help children and families is actually helping them and doing what it is they need, rather than just assuming that we know what to do. We ask the people who need the system. I
don't know if we can we see that picture of the you and your son again? Can we see that again? I'm not sure if we can. It just feels like that, in a way, is what this story, that moment in time. Where was this?
It was in St Pancras, next to the statue of the connected travellers. We thought that was going to be a perfect place.
That was literally the moment that you were reunited?
The moment I went running through the station, yes, and just grabbed him and held him again.
Too right. Angela, thank you so much. Jay Vaughan, Chief Executive of Family Futures, thank you so much as well.